Time to get started. I'm Matthew Morris, Wood Studio. Today is Monday? Yes, it's Monday, November 23rd, and it's time for another live weekly shop update. So, what's been going on this week here in the shop? Well, basically, since the last time you guys saw a weekly shop update till today, I've been concentrating on creating these pockets that are made up of doublers, which go from the dividers in that provide a pocket with the runners and the kickers, the runners being on the bottom, the kickers being on the top, for the drawers, for the two drawers on this coffee table. The drawers themselves are going to slide through in both directions, not just in one direction. So fun stuff here. Everything had to get evenly, well, not evenly, but I needed the same amount of spacing on the front as in the back. So there was a little bit of finessing because I was really right on, but on not this one, I think I was off slightly over the length, so I had to take some more material off on one side than the other, but it was very small, very subtle amount of material. So now that these guys are done, so I can start building the drawers. And the drawers are going to be typical, or no, typical is not the right word, but they're going to be a Hallmark green and green drawer with instead of being dovetails, they'll be basically finger joints, but large ones. And then we'll have a nice little pull in the front. And when those are done, then the bottom part is done and we can move on to the tabletop and get that done. I have some of the metal that I want to use for the tabletop already in. That's some sterling silver. And that's going to be in the inlay. That's going to be on the breadboard ends. I'm not totally positive on the actual depth and length of the top yet, because I want to kind of get the boards down and take a look at it and see what feels right. But like a typical green and green table, the tabletop will extend lengthwise a considerable distance beyond the base is length, and as well as some in the depth. So it will come out a good amount of space on either side. Of course, the breadboard ends will be on the end, and there'll be a ton of ebony all around those edges as well. So that's what's pretty much here. The other update this week is I have been, the D70 is over at Canon. They're repairing it. I shipped it out the day after I did the last shop update. They got it the next day because thankfully for me, they are here in Costa Mesa, which is in Orange County. It's about 65 miles from my house. I ended up shipping it UPS ground. They got it. And if I'm lucky, I'll maybe have it sometime early next week to mid next week, just because the holiday is probably screwing things up a little bit. So I've been shooting with the Rebel T5i, which is Elizabeth's camera. And I was having issues with it shooting with my Canon 24 to 105 L lens. I just couldn't focus well. Once I took that lens off, which my D70 has no problem handling, and put on the 18 to 55 STM lens that the camera comes with in the kit, it was a whole different animal. It was really actually pretty amazing. With this lens in here, it's the response rate is much better, and it's also slower to focus, which is really nice. It was trying to focus, I think, too fast with the L lens, but with this, it takes its time coming in and out, and I'm not doing anything action related here. So that means if I do move into the camera a little bit and then come back out, it's not going to try to refocus on my hand, for instance, as I come in and come out, and the focus would shift from what I'm trying to film, which is whatever I'm doing the work on. So I've been actually really impressed with this camera now that I have the STM lens on instead of the L lens I usually shoot with. So for the price of the camera compared to my D70, it's not that bad. The D70, the body's $1,000. This guy for the body, I believe, is $600. So it's a significant discount in price, or difference in price. I wouldn't say discount, difference in price. And it's doing pretty good. I can still mount and have audio in on the mic over here. And the nice thing is that the screen moves as well. So that's pretty cool. So I'm really happy that this has been working out, because that way I'm not losing any time shooting. Now for today's purposes, the Rode camera that Matt and I used for the Matt and Matthew show, that's what I'm shooting with right now, which is a Canon camcorder, and got some lights going on, so hopefully that's giving you guys a pretty decent image. So let's take a look at some of the questions, and then from there we can go on to just showing you some of the details on the piece as well, get the camera a little bit closer. So I'm not sure, but let's take a look at some of the stuff with the table. And to do that, let's move the camera. If you guys haven't seen it before, here is the carvings. Now, they were probably carved originally when the table, any of these pieces were built in the Gamble house. But for me, what I did was I used a router with a router jig to create this indent here. And here's the router jig if you haven't seen it before. And basically, in the video I show in the class, I show you how to make the jig with all the measurements, which you can probably all see right now. And it gets this material gets hogged out with a 3/8 inch bit, and then I use a 1/4 inch cove bit with a 3/8 inch collet inside to track this distance. This space between here and here is done with a chisel, and what's really nice is using this, you get a shape that you can then build from. So every single one of these that you create with the router and the cove bit is the exact same shape all around the table. And then from there, it's up to you with some sandpaper, and I use a 1/4 inch, a little file, and then a 1/4 inch gouge to help create that shape. So here's what the gouge looks like, right? So this is a 1/4 inch gouge, and that helps me do this transition period from where we're flat into where I come down. Then I also use a little rasp as well, and that really helps out a lot too. Let me show you that. Here's the rasp. And also helps to remove some material, especially when you angle it like this. And then after that, with some 80 or I usually start with 80 grit paper. Helps me to then just really smooth everything out real fast, and up to 150 and 220, and you get this really nice look here, matching what the original was like, bearing in mind they probably didn't do it in this manner. So that's a really cool detail. I like that. If you guys haven't seen some of the updates before, and you could kind of see it here, the fact that this was all one piece at one time, and the top, the center, and the bottom got re-glued together along the entire length of the piece as well. And then they got put back together, and that gave us this opening here. And the opening is across these two is the exact same height across the entire piece. So it's nice that gluing everything back together allows you to pull out these drawer fronts as well. So eventually, when the drawers go in, we have this nice grain pattern across the entire piece on both sides, which I'm really looking forward to seeing in the final piece itself. I did have some questions before where people were asking me, somebody on it was either YouTube or somewhere asked, is this correct? Because they thought this piece looked like it was upside down, and it's not. This design in here is in the negative space, and that's in the original pieces all in the living room. So that worked out, I think, really well, as I've done in my other pieces from the living room. So let's take a look a little bit closer at what is happening inside these drawers if you haven't seen it before. So we're going to take the camera off the tripod and go mobile here, for a little more mobile here. Okay, so as you can see inside, this is what I'm referring to. If you've never built drawers like this, my dividers are back here, right? And then here's the runners and the kickers. Now the runner I glued on first, then I glued on my first doubler, the bottom one, and then using the top here as my alignment point, I glued on the upper doubler. Now the kicker, the runner, is just, as you can see, slightly higher here than this part of the drawer. So it'll ride just right above, and that space here is less than 1/16 of an inch between this piece and this piece here. So the reason that there's nothing in between these is that you have less friction points this way. So the drawer is going to run smoother with these less friction points. And then the kickers are up here, and that helps prevent the drawer from tipping over when you pull it out. Especially on something this long, you're going to have a pretty long drawer. And the exact same process is done over here as well. Now, when I glued all of this up, you can see that right here, there's space between these two dividers, and I milled up a piece of material that went in between these. That was the same thickness as this space, and that allowed me to glue, put clamps across all of this while bracing these two so the pressure was distributed from one side to the next, and that was really important. As you can see right over here on the right and on the left, and all over the table, maybe a little too much, but overkill sometimes isn't that bad, are the mortises that the buttons are going to go into that will attach the tabletop to the base itself. All right, so did anybody have any questions about the table so far, or the base of the coffee table so far? If you do, throw them into the comments. I'd be happy to talk about them. And in the meantime, I'm just going to keep talking about the build on the table. Now, if you didn't notice before, there's two patterns here for the ebony plugs. There's this pattern here on the front of the table, so the long sides, which has it measured out from the center out instead of from the top and the bottom. This table doesn't exist at the house. I'm just using this off of other tables. So this pattern design is off of other, for the ebony plugs, is from the other tables in the living room as well. It's just like the little small table I did last year. James asks, were there any frustrations with the build so far? And what do you plan to make the drawer sides out of, is what Guy is asking. So frustrations. Honestly, I think the biggest frustration in the build has not been actually in the build itself, but me getting sick. So I lost 2 weeks of build time. That was a big frustration. And then my D70 dying and then falling back onto the Rebel T5i instead. So that's really been my biggest frustration. The other larger frustration, I guess build-wise, was when I bought all this wood, I just couldn't find anything I liked for the top. So I've really been thinking about that a lot, what I'm going to use for the top, because I was out and I just couldn't find anything that was long enough, because what I'm trying to do on this table is to try to match potentially what the experience you would have if you went to a Woodcraft or a Rockler or a lumber yard where they have material that's already been surfaced on two sides. So when I looked at the material at my lumber yard that's like that near me, I couldn't find anything that was going to be flat enough that I would get a good yield out of it in 4/4. So what I've decided I'm going to end up doing is buying some 8/4 and probably 2 boards of 8/4, maybe 3. Well, cutting it down lengthwise to 2 separate boards and then resawing it and butterflying them out or slip matching, one of the two, to create what I want for the tabletop so I can get the thickness that I want. I really want this to be 3/4 of an inch thick, with the breadboard ends adding another 1/16 of an inch to that as well, so full 1/8 of an inch, so the thickness extra from the thickness on the table. That's the plan. So that was a frustration for me at the lumber yards. I just couldn't find material that would work. So Guy asked what I'm going to make the drawer sides out of, and it's going to be mahogany because it's a green and green piece. Both the fronts and the sides are all mahogany too. Now, with this piece, the drawers are going to be a little bit different. So let me flip it up so I can talk about that real quick. So basically, we're going to have a front in the front, which I already have. We'll have sides, right? And then in the center, I'm going to have another piece that's bracing or creating more support across this length as well. That'll get glued into the same groove that will be made for the bottoms. So I'll have a bottom for this section, the support piece here, and then another bottom over here as well. I'm not quite sure what I want to do about the bottoms yet. I have a whole bunch of really nice maple that I bought back here that's really figured, and I thought I'd glue that up and create the bottoms there, but I need to make sure I account for expansion and contraction here. So the other thought would be to move to potentially a plywood for in between the front of the drawer and where the support piece will be in the center and the other front of the drawer, because there's really no front to this piece. Both sides could be the front. So I hope that answers your question, Kai, and gives you a little extra info on how the drawers are going to be built here for this piece. Matt Cremona asks, have I seen Guy's table? And he says it's pretty kick-ass. And I have. I've watched Guy's updates lately, and he's definitely doing a pretty awesome dining table. I can't wait to see the expansion stuff. If that was in your latest video, Guy, I just haven't watched it yet. It's been a little busy at the office, but over this break, I do intend to catch up on a couple of videos I've missed so far. Patrick's here. Hey Patrick, how you doing? Good to see you. James asks, he's asking about the finish. So the finish I'm going to use on this, James, and everybody else, is the same finish that I used on the armchair, the rocking chair, and the small side table. So that finish consists of a couple different things. Let me grab it for you. So the first thing in that finish is a garnet shellac. So the garnet shellac, I cut that down to so it's 1 pound. And the reason why I cut it down to 1 pound is it's much easier to apply, and you just help prevent all of the, if it's too thick, maybe it's just me, but it seems like it starts running, dripping, and I get spots and stuff I don't want. So I end up cutting it down to 1 pound. I like putting it into a bottle like this. This is what's left over from the rocking chair, by the way. It was, I think, up to here when I made this batch. And so I'll make another batch of garnet shellac. I use Brooklyn Tool and Company, I think is the name of the company. But I use their shellac flakes with denatured alcohol. And those together end up, here we go, Brooklyn Tool and Craft. So I use their garnet flakes, they're de-waxed. And so I end up building up about 5 coats of that here, and that builds really fast. once you finish one coat, you can literally start the second coat of how fast this dries. So I'll build up the garnet shellac, and then when that's done, then I move over to the Liberon wax polish black bison. The color is Tudor oak. Hopefully you can see that. A lot of light coming here. So I'll build up to that, and this is the final part. And so with that and the garnet, this gives it the final look of a nice tint. So it tints it a kind of a brownish color, and it also fills all the pores. And what a nice thing it also does is it gets buildup in where all your joints are, so it immediately ages the piece right where the joints are. So I really like how that looks as well. So that's my finished formula for this, which is the finished formula that Christopher Schwartz wrote about many years ago when he wrote an article about a dirty mahogany finish, I believe. It's something like that. Patrick asked, do you use any conditioners before putting on a finish? And no, I'm not using any conditioners or a sealer or anything like that. I'm just going straight to the shellac. I would love to test out that soap finish I've seen, but it's not for this type of a piece, something else where I'm building something out of oak. That'd be cool, but no conditioners. Matt Cremona asks, how many green pieces have you built? Let's see. In the house, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, let's start that again. I've got 2 Blacker House chairs, a Blacker House side table, 2 Gamble House armchairs, the Gamble House rocking chair, and then this will be, I think 7 in the house. And then for other people altogether, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I did a whole office, 7, 4 chairs, a table, cabinets, and hanging cabinets, and a big credenza. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. More chairs, 8, 9, 10, 15, 17, 18. I think 16 or 17 total pieces beyond the 7 that I have in the house. James 1287, yeah, possibly. Guy asked, am I worried about anybody spilling an alcoholic drink on the table? It's a really good question, Guy. Well, I'm pretty safe. I use a coaster when I drink my scotch, and yeah, it's a good question. I haven't really worried about it yet, so I'm not going to worry about it now. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I guess I could always finish this differently, so I could use something else, and the mahogany will just age normally or naturally, and that will take about 3 years or so until this gets to a really nice deep reddish tone on its own, or I can help it out. So I'm not sure. I'm not too worried. We're all adults here, and if we get, yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about it before, but it's a good question. Don't have a good answer, sorry. Patrick asked, would alcohol mess up the shellac? And back to Guy's question, the answer is yes. Alcohol would mess up the shellac, because alcohol will it dissolves shellac, and so the alcohol gets on the table, it'll help dissolve the shellac that's right there. So yeah, that would be a problem. So that's the finish. Same thing for the top, same thing on the bottom of the top as well. All the buttons will get finished on them too. And yeah, that's pretty cool. This, by the way, is that little spacer I was talking about that I milled up. So this guy here fits perfectly between the dividers right here, and I can move it up. I was able to move it up and down in the table while I was doing these glue ups to provide support across the pieces when I was clamping everything together. So this came in really handy as well. Let's see what else. Now this up here is really rock solid. Obviously everything's glued in. Now if you saw the update before, let me get the camera recentered a little bit better. If you saw the update before, you'll know that I created a drilling jig to drill holes for 1/4 inch dowels. Here's the jig that I made, and it's labeled F, so front on one side, and R for rear on the other. And one of these sides was labeled F, so this went into the side that was labeled F. On the R, then I labeled the piece on this end R as well, so that when I put this into the dado that I made, the 1/4 inch dado, and I drilled my hole for the dowels this way, and then I was able to move it over here, put this in, so this back piece would have been an R to an R, so I drilled the holes this way. And then since I labeled all this stuff, I knew that this back here would be an R as well. So I then clamped this piece, this divider, to this, made sure everything was nice and flush, because this was just a cutoff from one of the dividers that were all milled up at the exact same time. And then I was able to then clamp it around and drill from the other side and get all my holes perfectly aligned. So that was really valuable to getting this section here without the doublers, kickers, and runners all glued up before I actually glued the two sides together. That way everything stayed square. That was really useful also because there was so much going on here for this glue up that I think unless I used epoxy or the extended type bond, there was no way I was going to get this whole thing glued up all at once. So I had to do it in stages. So there's the drilling jig. Nothing fancy, just a cutoff from one of the dividers. That came in really helpful. Okay, Patrick asked, are the drawer sides going to be all wood? Yeah, Patrick, you think you may have missed it, but just to recap real quickly, I built the pockets here with the runners, kickers, and the doublers. There's going to be mahogany milled up a 1/2 inch thick, which I didn't say before, but it's going to run down this side and here as well. The fronts I've already pulled out of the previous pieces that I ripped apart and glued everything back together. So these fronts will match the grain all the way across. And then in the center of the drawer, right around here, there'll be another support piece of mahogany that'll get glued into the dado that gets run all around these pieces. And that'll provide extra support for this drawer length. And I'm not quite sure what I want to do for the bottoms, the two sections. It's either going to be plywood, really nice plywood. Maybe I'll make the plywood, I'm just not quite sure yet. Or I will take some of this really nice maple that I have back here and glue some stuff up and make sure I have enough room for expansion and contraction. Just haven't really decided yet there. I think the plywood would be more stable. Guy asked me if I ever considered getting a domino. No, actually I haven't, Guy. It'd be a great tool. It's just not my cup of tea, and the reason for that is a couple things. Number one, as you guys know, I film myself doing these and I sell the classes, so I can't expect other people to have a domino. So if I have this $1,500 machine, which is great, I'd love to have one. Well, yeah, I think it'd be cool to have one. I can't expect anybody else to have one, so I wouldn't want to show how to do this work that way. So, creating this drilling jig costs almost nothing. Just a little bit extra time, and with the dowels helping everything get lined up, it worked really well. Would a domino have worked? Absolutely. But I think this worked really well. And the other reason I probably wouldn't get a domino either is I have a multi-router. And the multi-router is basically a router tipped over just like the domino is. And I can go in and create the same type of joinery that way too. And I just have to create my own slip tendons. So I know that's my 2 cents on that. But you have one, I know you love it and you use it all the time. It's a great machine. It's just the bigger thing is other people, I can't expect them to have a domino. Same thing with the multi-router that I have as well, that's over here. I can't expect other people to have the multi-router, so I have to come up with jigs to do all the joinery I would have in the past used the multi-router for. Matt Cremoda wants to know, how many plaid shirts do I have? Not enough. That is my answer. I don't have enough. I don't know, 1, 2. Actually, I have 2 red ones that are exactly the same. I don't know, I like that a lot, so I bought 2 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know, maybe like 8 or 10, somewhere around there. Enough for at least every day of the week going into the next week so that I can do laundry over the weekend or on a Monday or Tuesday, and I'm okay. So I've got myself covered in case it was a really busy week and I don't get to doing laundry. Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting is that this is really, as I said, it was rock solid up here, but these guys like to move a little bit here. These lower rails along the length, they have some flex in them, much more so than the ones that are shorter, and that's obviously just probably because it's a longer piece. It's not nearly as tall or as thick, and so it has some flex in it. And even these, when without the dividers in them, didn't nearly have as much flex as the guys here on the bottom. So that was interesting to me. I hadn't thought about or realized that was going to happen until I actually built the piece itself. Now on the bottoms, just like on the small table before, I've done a taper here on the leg. It's a 1/16 of an inch taper over 3 inches in total. So that's pretty, gives it, you know, I think it gives it a nice look on the bottom, and it matches the little side table as well. Mike asks, will the bottom have a shelf? And no, this piece will not have a shelf on the bottom. I had thought about it, but I'm trying to really stay true to the pieces in the living room in the Gamble house, and the ones in the living room did not have a shelf on the bottom of any of them. They didn't have a coffee table then, but nonetheless they didn't have a shelf on the bottom. So I'm trying to stay true to the living room in the Gamble house. Guy asked, since there's no, well, first of all, let's step back even further. There is no such thing as a coffee table in 1908, 1910, that whole area, the whole arts and crafts section. There was no such thing as a coffee table. Coffee tables came into existence later, right? So not during that time period, not during the 10s. I'm not even sure about the 20s, even in the early 1900s. No coffee tables whatsoever. So this piece, back to your question, Guy, is a combination of 2 pieces. The library table in the living room, and there's a side table. It's kind of like a sofa table maybe, but it's a little taller, and that's at the entrance into the hallway as you enter into the living room. And so this is a combination of those 2 pieces. I've stuck with the legs that match the small little side table that's in the living room, instead of doing the stepped legs that match the legs on the rocking chair. So these legs more so match the legs in the small table and the armchair. But I'm trying to keep to the proportions as far as length and spacing here that is in the table that's against the wall in the entryway. And as far as the top is concerned, I'm trying to pull more so the length in the library table, how much it hangs over, proportionally matching the library table. Mike says, I hope you don't have kids. They will bust those rails. Well, that's why you send them off to a parochial school and they don't come back till they're 18, right? So, no, I'm just kidding, a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty strong. So hopefully I answered your question, Guy, about the table. But what I'm not going to do in the library table for the top, it was really interesting. I'm not quite sure why they did it, but on the top itself, along multiple points, they put squares of, so very large, I'm not sure if they're a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch square, but pieces of ebony along the entire length on the top. And I just don't feel like doing that. And that was in, I think, 2 or 3 locations on the tabletop. And I'm not going to do that here. Just going to do the splines on the breadboard ends, and then the cloud lift splines at the very end of the breadboard ends coming into the center section of the top. Oh, so a couple of things dealing with the online school. So let's see. This class is finishing up. Once I'm done filming this will get online. The next class is the dining table. And the class after that, just so you guys know, I've made a decision on what I want to do. And I'm going to be building a tool cabinet to replace my tool cabinet. I am in the middle of designing that right now, in between everything else. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out dimensions on the computer. Then I'll get into some plywood. So I have some ideas. As some of you may know, I have a bit of hand tools. And I'm trying to figure out the best thing to do with being able to fit my current collection of hand tools and have room for growth in my collection of hand tools. There are definitely some stuff that I have on my list of things to purchase. I'm just not there at purchasing them yet, but they are on the list. And of course, there could always be new things designed. I've been told that eventually, someday in the future, Lie-Nielsen will have a compass plane, and I'm pretty sure that I will be buying that because I like doing curved work. So that is not the next project, but the project after will be a new tool cabinet. And the project right after this is the Nakashima style dining table. That's for sure. Mike asked me, do I have any preview of what the table will look like? I do. Head over to the website, www.mmwoodstudio.com. And under classes, there's upcoming classes or something like that. And you can go to the Nakashima Inspired Dining Table section, and you'll see my dining table in the house. You will not see pictures of it, though, with extensions on it, but that will happen as well. So we'll build the extensions, we'll build the dining table. It'll be pretty cool. And a trestle base for it, all in walnut. And the walnut's been sitting back here for over a year. So it's ready to rock and roll as well. Brian's going to sell me a compass plane. No, I want a brand new Lie-Nielsen compass plane. That's what I'm hoping for. So if anybody from Lie-Nielsen's watching this and you have any testers that you want to send to people, you can send them my way, because I do a lot of curved work and I'd be more than happy to use one on some curved pieces I got coming up in the future. Yeah, so, but as soon as I have a definitive design on the tool cabinet, then I'll put that up. Let me just show you mine, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it before. This is out of, Fine Woodworking Magazine, and it's a nice tool cabinet. Don't get me wrong, I really like it. There's a lot of stuff in here, and I want better ways to hold some of these things, right? So let me get a little further back and we can talk about this. Let me walk you through what I've been thinking about here. So let's talk about what I've been thinking about. First off, as you can see, there's a lot of planes here as well. And I'm really, I've got a 4, a 2, there's a bevel up smoother over here, there's a jack plane back there. I've got 1, 2, 3 shoulder planes, 2 block planes, the scraping plane, and I've got my spoke shape. So I really want to have a plane till, but I want to have room to hang these guys up, the Miller Falls drills. They have a permanent home. So I'm trying to come up with a design that facilitates all this, plus has some drawers. I really like drawers, but I feel that they're a catch-all, so they need to be, for me, I need to do something better with them. I do have dividers in them now, but I'd like to do something better with them. Maybe that they're multi-tiered within it, but just something that better utilizes the space. And there's a lot of stuff up here that I think could hang much better. And then the other thing I really want to do too is have doors that are deeper as well, so that they can have storage inside of them as well. I do, however, really like being able to see into the cabinet, so I'd like to do that. I still like to keep this. I'm just not sure as far as some type of window. I think that'd be cool. I like these types of handles a lot, these campaign brass handles, so I still want to keep these. But I also think the cabinet may be too tall. Now if I dropped it a little bit closer to my bench, I'm 5'7", I can get up here, but maybe it's too tall. I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm really working on all of this, trying to figure it out. And SketchUp and plywood as well. So this is the project after the dining table. Yeah, I think we covered a lot tonight. That was a really good live show. It's been about an hour. I think that's enough for tonight. Now, I hope everybody has a really good Thanksgiving. You get the food you want, be it turkey, ham, stuffing, whatever it may be. Hopefully you really enjoy the time with your families. And I know that I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a lot of fun too. So as always, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm guessing you do if you're watching this. And everybody have a great week in the shop. I'm looking forward to coming back and talking to everybody next week, showing you some of the updates here on the table. And yeah, that's it. So everybody, have a great night.